What is the role of the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, in data protection law? A. It interprets GDPR provisions. B. It oversees the enforcement of GDPR violations. C. It ensures compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights and Convention 108. D. It adjudicates cases related to the Council of Europe. Correct answer: C. It ensures compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights and Convention 108. Explanation: the ECHR ensures compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights and Convention 108, upholding human rights and privacy protections across the Council of Europe member states. How does the GDPR handle compatibility of secondary processing purposes with the original purpose? A. It mandates a compatibility test considering specific factors. B. It prohibits secondary processing entirely. C. It allows processing for new purposes without restriction. D. It permits processing only if consent is obtained. Correct answer: A. It mandates a compatibility test considering specific factors. Explanation: the GDPR requires a compatibility test for secondary processing, considering factors such as the link between purposes, data nature, collection methods, and potential consequences. How does the GDPR define the relationship between controllers and processors concerning data processing contracts? A. Contracts must outline processing subject matter, types of data, and obligations of both parties. B. Contracts are optional between controllers and processors. C. Contracts must outline data transfer mechanisms. D. Contracts must specify data retention policies. Correct answer: A. Contracts must outline processing subject matter, types of data, and obligations of both parties. Explanation: the GDPR mandates contracts between controllers and processors to outline processing subject matter, types of data, and obligations of both parties, ensuring clear responsibilities and compliance. How does the GDPR address cross-border data transfers to third countries deemed inadequate? A. It prohibits all transfers to these countries. B. It mandates individual agreements with supervisory authorities. C. It permits transfers with specific safeguards like standard contractual clauses or binding corporate rules. D. It requires national law to enforce transfers. Correct answer: C. It permits transfers with specific safeguards like standard contractual clauses or binding corporate rules. Explanation: the GDPR permits transfers to third countries deemed inadequate only with safeguards like standard contractual clauses or binding corporate rules, ensuring consistent data protection. What measures does the GDPR require for data subjects' rights concerning automated decision-making and profiling? A. It prohibits all profiling. B. It grants the right to object, obtain explanations, and opt out. C. It mandates explicit consent for profiling. D. It permits unrestricted profiling. Correct answer: B. It grants the right to object, obtain explanations, and opt out. Explanation: the GDPR grants data subjects the right to object to automated decision-making and profiling, obtain meaningful explanations, and opt out, ensuring protection against potentially harmful practices. What is the role of the European Data Protection Board, EDPB, in ensuring GDPR compliance across member states? A. It oversees national supervisory authorities. B. It provides guidelines and monitors consistency. C. It enforces GDPR amendments. D. It supervises GDPR implementation directly. Correct answer: B. It provides guidelines and monitors consistency. Explanation: the EDPB provides guidance and monitors consistency in GDPR application, ensuring that national supervisory authorities follow the GDPR framework uniformly. How does the GDPR handle data breaches to ensure appropriate management and reporting? A. It mandates notification to supervisory authorities within 72 hours and affected individuals without undue delay. B. It mandates immediate public disclosure. C. It requires data processors to manage breaches alone. D. It prohibits data breaches. Correct answer: A. It mandates notification to supervisory authorities within 72 hours and affected individuals without undue delay. Explanation: the GDPR mandates controllers notify supervisory authorities within 72 hours of a breach and inform affected individuals without undue delay, ensuring timely response and mitigating harm. What specific principles guide the GDPR's approach to data processing? A. Lawfulness, transparency, and accuracy. B. Accountability, storage limitation, and transparency. C. Integrity, data minimization, and fairness. D. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. Correct answer: D. Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. Explanation: the GDPR mandates lawfulness, fairness, and transparency in relation to data subjects, guiding the entire data processing lifecycle to ensure compliance and respect for individual rights. What role does the European Court of Justice, ECJ, play in interpreting EU data protection law? A. It oversees national supervisory authorities. B. It adjudicates preliminary rulings on EU law interpretation. C. It supervises GDPR enforcement. D. It handles GDPR amendments. Correct answer, B. It adjudicates preliminary rulings on EU law interpretation. Explanation. The ECJ provides preliminary rulings on cases arising in national courts related to EU law, ensuring consistent interpretation and application across EU member states. How does the GDPR address household activities in its material scope? A. It excludes processing solely personal or familial. B. It prohibits processing of household data entirely. C. It mandates GDPR compliance for all household activities. D. It applies to household activities processed by automated means. Correct answer, A. It excludes processing solely personal or familial. Explanation. The GDPR excludes processing of personal data for activities solely personal or familial, such as correspondence or household management, ensuring individual privacy. How does the GDPR address special categories of data, particularly concerning processing exceptions? A. It prohibits processing entirely. B. It permits processing with additional safeguards. C. It allows unrestricted processing. D. It mandates encryption. Correct answer, B. It permits processing with additional safeguards. Explanation. The GDPR permits processing special categories of data, such as health, ethnic origin, or political opinions, provided additional safeguards, like explicit consent or institutional oversight, are implemented. What is the significance of the GDPR's accountability principle for controllers and processors? A. It mandates annual reports. B. It obligates detailed documentation and cooperation with regulators. C. It restricts data processing. D. It mandates regular audits. Correct answer, B. It obligates detailed documentation and cooperation with regulators. Explanation. The GDPR's accountability principle mandates controllers and processors to demonstrate compliance through detailed documentation, cooperation with regulators, and adherence to GDPR obligations. How does the GDPR address cross-border cooperation between EU member state supervisory authorities? A. It establishes a one-stop shop mechanism. B. It mandates supervisory authority meetings. C. It requires individual contracts. D. It prohibits cross-border cooperation. Correct answer, A. It establishes a one-stop shop mechanism. Explanation. The GDPR's one-stop shop mechanism enables cooperation and coordination between supervisory authorities across member states, streamlining handling of data protection matters. How does the GDPR define the role of joint controllers in determining data processing purposes and means? A. It mandates distinct responsibilities. B. It requires a transparent arrangement outlining respective responsibilities. C. It prohibits joint controllers. D. It allows unrestricted processing. Correct answer, B. It requires a transparent arrangement outlining respective responsibilities. Explanation. The GDPR requires joint controllers to transparently determine respective responsibilities, ensuring compliance with data protection obligations and data subject rights. How does the GDPR address processing of children's data in the context of information society services? A. It mandates explicit consent from parents or guardians for children under 16. B. It prohibits processing entirely. C. It allows unrestricted processing. D. It mandates encryption for all children's data. Correct answer, A. It mandates explicit consent from parents or guardians for children under 16. Explanation. The GDPR mandates explicit consent from parents or guardians for processing children's data in information society services for children under 16, or as low as 13, depending on member state law. How does the GDPR address territorial scope for processing personal data of data subjects in the EU? A. It applies to all data processing activities. B. It applies if a controller or processor is established in the EU. C. It applies if processing relates to offering goods or services or monitoring behavior. D. It does not cover non-EU controllers. Correct answer, C. It applies if processing relates to offering goods or services or monitoring behavior. Explanation. The GDPR applies to processing personal data of EU data subjects if it relates to offering goods or services or monitoring behavior, ensuring compliance even for non-EU entities. What are the lawful grounds for processing personal data under the GDPR? A. Consent, contractual necessity, and legal obligation. B. Consent, legal obligation, and public interest. C. Consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests. D. Consent, public interest, and contractual necessity. Correct answer, C. Consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests. Explanation. The GDPR outlines 6 lawful grounds for processing, including consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests, among others like legal obligation and public interest. How does the GDPR address the handling of genetic and biometric data? A. It prohibits their processing entirely. B. It applies to them as special categories. C. It mandates encryption. D. It permits unrestricted processing. Correct answer, B. It applies to them as special categories. Explanation. The GDPR classifies genetic and biometric data as special categories, prohibiting their processing unless under specific exceptions, ensuring data protection consistency.